Welcome to Dad Bods, Crabcakes, and Sports, where husky middle-aged men share insight on the latest Baltimore sports news. From the bank to the yard and beyond, we're breaking down the Ravens, Orioles, Terps, and more. Baltimore's best sports podcast starts right now.
Good evening and welcome to Dad Bods, Crabcakes, and Sports. Jason here with Mike and special guest, Locked On Oriole host Connor Newcomb. Connor, there's not a whole lot of stuff to talk about with the Orioles this offseason. It's been quite boring, so this should only take about 5 or 10 minutes if you have it.
Yeah, sounds good. You know, after the intro, it's like, well, I don't think anybody wants to hear about the Ravens, and I don't think anybody wants to hear about the Terps at this moment.
Right.
And the Orioles have jumped in and said, you know what? Fine, we'll do it. We'll take the city back over, and here we are.
Yes, I mean, including the host. I think the hosts here are also tired of talking about the Terps and also the Ravens temporarily.
I'm ready for 2026. That's all I know.
Well, so speaking of 2026, things could get very exciting in Birdland, Connor. As you said a couple minutes ago, before we came on here, we had talked to you about getting you on here and what you thought of the Pete Alonso move and some of the other moves. But since then, they made another big move, which was Shane Bods. So I guess your thoughts first on Shane Bods, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun pickup. I would say the Shane Bods move, and it's caused a lot more. Wow, you know, the Orioles are being even more aggressive, and I think it falls in line with everything they've done this offseason, which is Mike Elias and now David Rubenstein with him are acting a lot differently than Mike Elias ever has at the helm. I will say, of all the moves they've made this offseason, besides maybe like getting Leody Taveras all the way back in November, this is the move that I could have seen the previous off seasons doing, the previous, I guess, versions of the front office, the not as aggressive front offices, just because they could have identified a player like Bods being a little undervalued, not having hit his peak performance yet, still having those 3 years of control, being a very cheap player. Like Shane Bods is only going to cost the Orioles $3 million next year. And over the 3 years that he has left on his contract, I mean, maybe he'll cost $20 million total at most, and probably less than that. So, and they didn't give up really any of their top 5 prospects. This is a deal I could have seen them doing in the past, but when you add it on to everything they've done already, it's like, wow, they are continuing to be aggressive. And really the best part of it is, you know, they do it Friday night. Mike Elias talks to the media Saturday morning, and there's immediate like, yeah, no, we're not done. We're not done with starting pitchers. Even like the Shane Bods is good. We think he has number 1 upside stuff, but everybody knows he hasn't reached that yet. And so we still need another starting pitcher. And that was really the best part. Like, how good will Bods be? I think he's a legitimate, definite member of the 5-man rotation all season if he stays healthy. And I think if we see the good version of Shane Bods, he could start a playoff game. But the Orioles probably didn't get the ace yet. And that's okay, because they seem like they're still willing to go get that closer to number 1 type. And we're kind of in a snowball effect where, like, the last couple off seasons, it was, wow, all these lack of moves or small moves start to make you feel worse and worse about the team. This year it is every single move is making you feel better and better about the offseason, about the team as it goes on.
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing that everyone seems to be at first, and Mike is guilty of this as anybody, is everyone looked at the haul they gave up at first. And I think everyone took a step back. But I keep, like, I don't mean to throw Mike's business out there, but his therapist bill is getting huge here. And I'm going to send you that bill soon, Mike, because I've been trying to preach that anytime the Orioles have really tried to go after controllable pitching, not just the rentals and whatnot, they've pictured these guys that they could maybe tweak something and make a move that really, like, puts them in a different spot. They did it with Trevor Rogers. I mean, they brought Bradish into the organization and worked with him for a bit before he made his debut. So, I mean, do you kind of feel the same way with Shane Bods here?
Yeah, I mean, for Bods, I think, you know, there's still a lot of ceiling. I mean, it's very funny to look at him, and he's going to be the youngest starter in their rotation this year. But it's funny to look at him, and you know, this Orioles core is aging bit by bit, that he's younger than some of the, you know, older members of the young core. Like Adley Rutschman is older than Shane Bods. So you're getting to this point where he still has a lot of growing to do. He hasn't reached the peak age. He just debuted so early for the Rays because he was drafted out of high school, and he was, you know, at at the lowest. When he was near the majors, he was like the number 3 pitching prospect in baseball. Him and Grayson were neck and neck for a while for best pitching prospect. And it's almost that just, we've only seen one full season. That was 2025 with the Rays, and you have to throw out some of it because he pitched half his games in the Mickey Mouse minor league ballpark down in Tampa. And so we just don't know. And I think, we've gotten a lot of comparisons. Did they just trade away Grayson Rodriguez to trade for Grayson Rodriguez? Yes, there are certainly similarities. The two of them were neck and neck for top pitching prospect for a while. High school first-round draft picks, have been out with some injury, huge stuff, but still haven't really fully lived up to the potential. I talked about this on my show on Friday. The biggest difference is that since Grayson Rodriguez's last start in the big leagues, Shane Baz has made 41 of them. And that is the entire big difference between these two players, is that you get a guy who presumably he's just coming off a long Tommy John. It's not like Grayson where it's been 6 different injuries. It was one long Tommy John. That happens to most pitchers, it feels like, at this point. And so, yeah, we just, because of that and how long the Tommy John recovery took, we haven't gotten to see Baz really just lay it all out there in a normal pitching environment. He finally got to do it last year, but you can't, it's not just a Baz thing. You can't really evaluate any Rays pitcher, I think, from last year because of how extreme that ballpark was. And knowing that they only play there for 1 year. So not like you're fully adjusting yourself just to adjust to the ballpark for your entire career. So now we're going to get a full sense of what he looks like in a full season if he stays healthy. And there is some stuff the Orioles can tweak. He kind of mixed between his slider and cutter and couldn't kind of figure out that pitch. The O's need to find one of the two that works and kind of stick with that. But the fastball is good. It's good velocity. He's got maybe the best curveball of any starter in Major League Baseball in terms of just the raw stuff. I think it's pretty easy to say, you could put on the rose-colored glasses like I do a lot and find another gear for any player the Orioles bring in. But I think as a mass, it's really easy to find another gear for Shane Baz because we only have, one full season. He's only 26, and you can still really dream on a lot of things because he just hasn't been able to pitch for that long. But you kind of, on the flip side, still trust him to be able to pitch moving forward because the Tommy John is behind him.
Yeah. Well, I find like it's a shift, like you said, Connor, with the Orioles mentality. They're trying to win now, which is something we haven't really seen, those types of moves from the Orioles. And to me, I know they're dealing away a lot of single A prospects or guys they just drafted, and that's the future long down the road. But I love to see them making moves to win next year. And I think with the Shane Baz trade, I think that's clear. My question for you is this: you said you had mentioned, we're going to go after another starter, and I think all of us agree that they need at least one more starting rotation piece to be a successful ball club this year. Do you see that coming via trade? Do you see it coming via free agency? And the second follow-up question would be, if we do consider trading, is there a piece you feel like the public maybe values more than the Orioles do?
Yeah, I would say to answer the first question, I think it's more likely at this point free agency. And to me, and people have argued the other side. They've said, maybe the Orioles are pulling back from free agency because they don't love any of the mid-tier guys and feel like they're not worth it. Like maybe they look at Zach Gallen and they just say, I don't know if we can fix that guy. He's going to cost a draft pick. He was terrible last year. Let's just going to be hands off with him. And maybe they look at the price of the remaining 3 really good starters out there, Suarez and Valdez and Amai, and they just say that's way over what we want to do. Let's just go make another trade like the Bods one. Let's go, try to pry Joe Ryan, or let's try to make the Freddie Peralta trade or whatever and call it an offseason. I would argue the other side. I would say they just saw how expensive it is to go and trade for starting pitching, and they didn't go all in because, the number one, this guy's going to be traded candidate of the offseason is Coby Mayo, and he is still on the Orioles after making a trade for a good starting pitcher. So there is still ammunition to not take away your absolute best prospects and get a starting pitcher here. I just think, and I've been saying it all offseason, I've said they're going to get 2 starters, and I think the most likely scenario is it's 1 trade and 1 free agent. So they've made the 1 trade. Now it's just about, okay, what tier of free agent are you going to get? Are you going to get the Suarez, Valdez, Imai tier, or are you going to end up with the Chris Bassett, Zach Gallen-ish tier where it's like, yes, this guy is certainly one of your 5 best starters. He helps you, but does it really take you to that next level like some of these other moves have? In terms of, valuing what they have here, I think the valuation of Coby Mayo from the Orioles versus around the league is just going to be super, super interesting. And by February, by the time we get to spring training, we're going to learn what that entire valuation is. There is a scenario where Coby Mayo is in Sarasota with the Orioles because either the O's really think there's a way to get him into this lineup. Mike Elias said there was Saturday, but he has to say that. He can't just say, yeah, no, we're going to trade this guy. Then you lose all your leverage. You got to say, of course we have a place we can find him. He's been on the roster for the last 2 years. We can absolutely do it again, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that there were some mishaps in his development. Some of that's on the Orioles. Some of that is just the circumstance, and some of that's on Kobe Mayo as well. I don't think you can throw it on one party. And he still has plenty, I think, hopefully, of good baseball left in his career. He's still only just turned 24 years old. But I think for guys where, the Orioles at least are going to look to move, Mayo's that number one name. But you can look around, and if you get the right deal that has to include a Dylan Beavers, I think they would do it, because I think they're willing to supplement the outfield in other ways. And if you get the right deal that has to involve like an Enrique Bradfield Jr., I think they're very invested in him, but they would make that move if it could get them pitching. I think the guys that they're going to really try their best to hold on to, like, they're not obviously trading Basayo. They extended him. He's kind of left this entire conversation, not that he was ever in it. But I think there are a couple pitchers like Trey Gibson and Luis De Leon who are already in the high minors, who I think the Orioles really see as guys who in the next 2 years are going to truly help them at the big league level and are going to try their best to hold on to. It's just weird because if we see that the Orioles are going to trade Kobe Mayo, I also think the 29 other GMs can see that the Orioles want to trade Kobe Mayo. And so you can't just say, oh, we got to go get a pitcher from a team that would want Mayo. That's not the important side. The important side is getting the pitcher that's going to help us. They did that with the Rays, and the Rays didn't really want Mayo, which makes sense. They have Junior Caminero at third base. They have Yandy Diaz at first base. There's not a great spot. They have 2 power hitting righties in their lineup already, and Mayo's a guy who's not going to want to go back to AAA. They're not a team that's going to want him, and the O said, fine, here's these other players we're willing to give up. Would it match up well maybe with a Minnesota to give him Kobe Mayo, or with a Miami? Yeah, it would. But I don't think you force that just to get rid of Kobe Mayo. You still make the best deals, and maybe you're in a weird spot where he's in spring training with nowhere to play. But if the Orioles are a lot better and they still have Kobe Mayo, I think that's fine. I think that's a weird relationship where you're still trying to trade him throughout the entire season. But not everyone's going to be happy when you are bringing in good players. That is going to take away the spots of some players who might be good one day but haven't shown it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because just because Dylan Beavers was on the roster at the end of the year doesn't mean he starts this year on the roster. I'm assuming, I guess my next question for you is, do you think they're done adding to the offensive side, whether it's through a trade or whether it's through this free agency kind of going in a certain direction? I mean, do you think they add anybody else?
I think if they found the right utility type player, I think they would go after that. I don't think they would be ready, because right now you're probably slotting in Jeremiah Jackson into that role on opening day. And while that was really cool to see what he did in AAA, and then honestly, shockingly, what he did in the major leagues to be as productive as he was, there's a reason why Jeremiah Jackson at 25 or whatever he is was available for a minor league contract last offseason. This could all fall off completely and could be a 1 month run. It could be a Jeremy Lin type run for Jeremiah Jackson, and that's kind of it. Ramon Arias is out there, which is funny. He was non-tendered by the Astros. He is a free agent, but I do think, if a player like a Willie Castro, for example, who's a free agent, if his price went down enough and it were January 20th and he's willing to take a 1 year, $6 million deal, I think they would do that, because Castro can play everywhere. His bat's around league average. He's got maybe more tools even than Arias has that you like in that utility role, and obviously more tools than Mateo besides the speed. I think that's the addition they would make. Otherwise, the only way I'd see other additions on offense would be trades that also involve some of the guys who are kind of in weird spots. Like if you could move Mountcastle or Mayo, and instead of getting a starting pitcher, it was maybe a reliever and like a really good defensive type center fielder that can push Kowser back to left and give you an upgrade over Leody Taveras. I could see some moves like that where you're shuffling around the deck chairs a little bit, but making the team kind of incrementally better. I don't see an offensive move left after Taylor Ward and Pete Alonso where it's going to be like, wow, this offense just got a ton better again with that move.
Well, the one name that keeps going around is Brenton Doyle from Colorado. And the one reason I bring it up is because I think he's kind of stuck in between an everyday player and a utility guy because 2 years ago, I think he had like 23 home runs and 30 stolen bases. And I believe last year was pretty rough for him. I don't know the circumstance, but he dealt with some issues in his personal life, weighed on him a lot. It sounded like. I was wondering, I actually got into a conversation about it today, if like Kobe Mayo and somebody else or something, and it brought back a reliever and something like that. The only thing I pause with is anytime there's a name mentioned out there like that with the trade, the Orioles seem to go the other way.
Yeah, I mean, for Doyle, I would really actually love Brenton Doyle on this team. It does just worry me that here's the thing. Doyle is one of the best defensive center fielders in baseball, and he also hits right-handed. That is something the Orioles could absolutely use on this roster. The issue is cost versus what he gives you. If Brenton Doyle even gives you like the median outcome between what he was in 2024 and what he was in 2025, which is around a league average bat, good runner, fantastic defensive center fielder, valuable player, but not someone who, plays 160 games in the starting lineup. You're probably moving him in and out a little bit, a lot of defensive replacements at the end of games when he's not starting. Is that worth it, what you'd have to give up? Because I think there are teams who probably believe a lot that Doyle will bounce back. And because he has, I think, like 4 years of team control left, are going to be willing to give the Rockies a good amount to get him. And for the Orioles, you have to weigh, okay, we know Brenton Doyle is a better player than Leody Taveras. But from what we're expecting from Taveras, if he makes the team, which is to start a few times against lefties maybe, and come in defensively late in games to play center, shift Cowser to left, and get Taylor Ward or get Tyler O'Neill out of the outfield for the last couple of innings, make us better defensively. Is Doyle going to be enough back with the bat that he's so much better than Taveras that you make that move? Or is the difference incremental enough where even at this point, Doyle's better than Taveras, but not by that? I mean, look, Taveras was the center fielder for a team that won the World Series 2 years ago. Like, there's still a chance that he could play that role just fine. You have to weigh that if you're the Orioles. And if you do have to give up a little bit because he has so much team control, I don't know if they're going to see it being worth it to make that kind of move and give that up. And you got to remember, like, yeah, there's stuff going on in his life that probably impacted it. And I think he's going to be better offensively in 2026. I feel very confident about that. But you also have to remember, like, he was bad at Coors Field. And so it's just like, that's going to up your offense across the board. And even there were some struggles. There was already questions about his offensive profile when he had a good year in 2024. I love the glove. This is just a guy where it feels very could go the Jorge Mateo way. And there's a time and place to have Mateo on that roster. And the Orioles have made it abundantly clear this offseason that is no longer the time. And that could be a very similar kind of player if it continues to go in the wrong direction offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. I would listen to your Locked On, and we're again Locked On Orioles. Connor Newcomb is joining us today on our podcast, which is awesome. Appreciate your time, Connor, and just listening to your podcast about lefty relievers today, and the fact that the Orioles really are primed to add a lefty reliever in what they have. They have Keegan Aiken there. They've got Dietrich Enns in there. I really don't think they have a proven lefty to kind of go lefty late in the game. And so I know that you had talked about a few ideas on your podcast today, and I wish if you could just share a few with us of maybe which direction you think the Orioles could go. I know there have been JoJo Romero rumors floating around out there. I've been an advocate of bringing in Danny Coulombe again. I don't know, where do you think the Orioles should go?
It's funny with Coulombe, right? Like, it's just the move that has made probably the least sense to me that Mike Elias has made in the time that he's been here, which is declining his $4 million. We're not talking about a $14 million player team option. We're talking about $4 million. And when the Orioles did that after the 2024 season, I talked about it on my show and said, listen, I get why the Orioles are making this move. This is a guy who missed 3 months this year with elbow injuries and is already in his mid-30s and already only throws 90 miles an hour. Those are usually the recipe of this is going to kind of fall off the table and be close to the end for this guy. So I understood it. My argument back to myself was like, but it's only $4 million. And at that point, David Rubenstein had already taken over. So we were not operating in John Angelos land anymore. And it's, on a 1-year deal, Rubenstein showed he's willing to give out extra money to players on 1-year deals just to get them to Baltimore. So what was 1 year, $4 million for a guy who had been one of the best lefty relievers in baseball for you over the past 2 years? Did he struggle with injury this year? Yes. Was he still awesome when he was on the field this year? Also, yes. And so, he did come back from another injury, and it was the same thing for Coulomb this year. Got injured, came back in September, and looked pretty bad in September. And then you're like, uh-oh, I think the cliff is coming. But if he's only going to cost you $3 or $4 million again, even if it's just 40 innings of good baseball before he kind of craps out a little bit, that's okay. And you can replace him at the trade deadline. Like, that would still be helpful for a cheap option. I think it's more likely that they just go the free agent route. The best guys are off the board already. I was way in on Caleb Thielbar. He got signed. Justin Wilson's kind of a very Danny Coulomb-like player where it's an older lefty who just continues to produce and have good stuff. Sean Newcomb, no relation, could kind of be an interesting swing man, but the A's turned him into more of a one-inning reliever last year, and he was quietly awesome on that team. So maybe he's an interesting guy. And you have the classic veteran Taylor Rogers is still out there, and you kind of know what you'll get from him at this point. I just think you trade for relievers at the deadline when you need them. I talked about this on my show here on Monday. It's not super smart to trade for 1 year relievers in the offseason just because you're always going to pay more than they're worth at that point. And I talked about how, if you're going to go get a reliever with 3 or 4 years of control in the offseason, that's the time to do it. The Mariners got Jose Ferrer. The Brewers got Angel Zerpa. These are these lefties with huge stuff where, they haven't put it all together yet, but you can see it. And they've got, 4 years of team control. So I named a couple of those guys like, Evan Sisk and Andrew Nardi, but I like Jojo Romero. And again, I said it, if the O's get Jojo Romero, their bullpen will be better than it was before they made that trade, but they'll probably lose that trade 9 times out of 10. And I just think if you can go get Justin Wilson, he's going to give you 90% of Jojo Romero without giving up the prospects. And relievers are so volatile. It's better to just make the cheap free agent bet rather than the trade bet on them for a 1 year guy.
I mean, do you still think that they add from outside the organization as much, like righty or lefty? Or do you think they give some of these kind of 4A type players a shot, like McDermott? I mean, in a perfect world, Wells goes to the bullpen for me. And then in a more perfect world, Dean Kramer goes to the bullpen too. But I mean, let's be realistic here. So I don't know. Do you think that's a inside the organization thing, or they still go outside?
I think they're one reliever short from the outside, probably. I mean, the nice part about some of this group is that these are guys who can begin the year in AAA and can be really good up-down depth for you. One of the issues with the Oriole bullpen last year is that on paper, the Orioles had a really talented bullpen coming into 2025. They had Felix back. They had, before Cano had really, really started to fall off, which was this year. They had Keegan Aiken coming off a great year. They had Soto and Dominguez, who both brought them back good stuff at the deadline. They had signed Andrew Kittredge. Of course, he got hurt in spring training, but before that, this looked like a really, really devastating bullpen. And some of it fell apart because of injury. Other was just they didn't have any optionable guys. And so when guys ran into trouble, you couldn't really do anything. You just had to ride it with those, 6 or 7 guys who had to stay there. And that was tough. Now, it's going to be some of that still this year because when you're bringing in free agents in your bullpen, they are not optionable, right? Ryan Helsley and Andrew Kittredge are not going to be optionable. Now, you don't think you're going to need to option them. You trust they're going to be your best 2 relievers, at least on the team at this point. But Yennier Cano still has options, which is going to be important and why he's still here even after the struggles, because you can stick him in AAA if you need to. These guys that they saw some flashes from last year, like Yarmil Geraldo and Cade Stroud and Grant Wolfram, these guys have minor league options. And while they have the ceiling of being a good big league reliever, if all 3 of those guys are in Norfolk to begin the year, you're probably feeling really good about your bullpen. And you can go to those guys when you need them. When guys are injured, they can be up-down relievers. And then you have those other names like a Chase McDermott. We'll see if he's going to be healthy again. Anthony Nunez, who they added to the 40-man roster this offseason. I really, really like his stuff. You've got some guys in there. Even if you want to turn Cade Povich into a reliever, he would be optionable as well, which would be helpful because certainly he's going to be, I think, pushed out of the rotation with one more move if he isn't already, if you're kind of, more of a Tyler Wells guy. But you're also going to get Tyler Wells into that bullpen too. So I still think it's one reliever short, and they'll still be in a position where they can be more optionable than they have been in the past. It's a big Buck Showalter-ism is to have guys who could be on that Norfolk shuttle for the back 3 spots of your bullpen. It is very helpful in the way that baseball is now played. But I do think not everybody who was good at the end of last year is going to be good in the next year. And that's the other thing. One of Rico Garcia or Dietrich Enns is probably not going to be good next season, just because of the fact that they are relievers in their 30s who had never really popped until 2 months last season. It's a good thing to bet on. One of them probably being serviceable, and one of them where it's June, you're like, that might be the next roster move, right? So you have to bet on both of those things happening. And that's where it's nice to, if we can have these optionable guys down in AAA, let's go into the season knowing that, hey, Enns and Garcia are both going to be on the opening day roster along with Aiken. But one of these three guys is going to be DFA'd by the end of May because it's just not all going to work out for all of them. And then Wolfram, Geraldo, Stroud, whomever can be ready to pop up here. And this is another optionable arm that we like.
Let's talk about spending some more of David Rubenstein's money. Jason and I like to do that a lot. But we had the great Sam Basayo extension, midseason last year, which was exciting to see us wrap up one of these young guys that are up and coming. But my question for you, Connor, Jason has definitely suggested, why not Trevor Rogers? Why not one of these guys who, one of these young pitchers, maybe Bradish, somebody who has shown their capability, at least at the big league level, or obviously a positional player, is it a Cowser, a Westberg, a Gunner? Some of those guys are harder to get done because they're Scott Boras clients, but where would you see them if they had a chance to extend somebody? Maybe where do they go next?
I think Rogers and Bradish are the two top names, the two perfect names to throw out there. I think, Rogers, you have a little more of a timeline because he's going to be a free agent after 2026. I think if you are the Orioles, as much as you believe in yourselves, this is the funny part, right? They turned him around. And you have to give credit to some of the people he worked with at Driveline in the offseason as well. But the Orioles played a gigantic role in basically turning his career around. And I think that's going to be helpful if they do want to negotiate an extension with him, because he can look to that team and say, I saw the depths of my career. You guys were the ones who helped pull me out of that. I feel more confident that I can stay at this top level if I stay in Baltimore. But if you're the Orioles, no one in their right mind in that warehouse thought Trevor Rogers would give you 20 starts of sub-2 ERA. I think they're probably still in disbelief that actually happened. They know, and we know, Trevor Rogers is not going to put up a 1.8 ERA in 2026. I think the question they want to see is, what's the real Rogers? I think they feel confident he's not a 4.5 ERA guy anymore. They're also confident he's not a 2 ERA. Is it 3? Is it high 3s? Is it 4? That's going to really depend on what they want to do moving forward. How does the stuff look? Can he find his arm slot consistently? Is the command as just elite as it was? So even if his stuff falls off, he can still be a good pitcher, a 4 and 5 as the years go on. Trevor Rogers is one of those guys who I could see an extension happening during the All-Star break or something, where the Orioles get one more little look at it. And even if it's not going as great as we thought, like even if he's got a 3.8 ERA at the All-Star break, where the O's are like, you know what? He's settled into a pitcher who has our number 4 for the next 3 years, could be incredibly helpful. Let's do it. Bradish is the one where I don't think he'd actually take the extension right now, because I think Kyle Bradish knows that 2023 version of Kyle Bradish is coming back. And when that happens this year, then he's asking for the bag. But at this point, it's probably not a smart time for him to lock down that extension. He's still got 3 years to kind of get that done. But those are definitely two guys that I would certainly target. And then the first hitter I'd talk to is Jordan Westberg. I know it's a Boras client, which makes it even harder, but he is the first guy I would turn to. And because it's not going to be the $300 million type extension, it's going to be a guy who's so far been an all-star once, been a really good player, who's also had injury issues. I think you could get him for a reasonable price if him and Boras are willing, and that would be the first position player for me.
Yeah, I mean, that would be exciting. There's a lot of different podcast stuff people are going around saying, okay, well, if the Orioles don't make another real big move, if they end up extending one or two of these guys, what does that do for this offseason? I mean, I think the offseason's already been phenomenal. We've already mentioned that they do need one more pitching move, but say they go out and get kind of a lesser than Shane Baz pitcher, but they extend Cowser and Rogers, or one of the two. What does that do for you?
Yeah, I think, the name I've been throwing in there is like Chris Bassett. He seems like the very much like, we didn't get the guys we wanted. Let's pivot to Chris Bassett. We'll give him 2 years and $50 million, and he'll throw 180 innings and he'll be perfectly fine. If they sign Bassett as their last starter, and then they did, extend Rogers and Cowser, that part of it's tough because those two guys both have questions. I think if one of the two guys you extended had a little less questions about him, Jordan Westburg has questions, but I think we know if that guy can just stay on the field, Colton Cowser, when on the field, still gives you a little concern. Like Jordan Westburg, when he's on the field, is an all-star level player. It's been some weird injuries at times and other injuries that you get a little concerned about. So, say it was Westburg and Rodgers. I think I'm okay with that offseason. It's not the dream offseason because it doesn't improve the 2026 team as much as I would have wanted when we were thinking about, maybe Framber Valdez being the final pitching ad or whomever it may be. But if you can get those guys extended, because that's really the next step here. Yes, giving out money to a pitcher in free agency is, I think, a huge next step. But once you get Basayo locked up, and he's in kind of an interesting scenario, he's really the first international free agent to pop for the Orioles, and that's just the reality of the economics of the U.S. and baseball. That conversation is going to be different from an international free agent player versus a guy who got a $6 million signing bonus out of the draft. Those are just going to be different extension conversations. If you can get one of those guys, like a Westburg, to buy into this long term, then we're talking about buy-in that I'm still worried is not fully there from the entire team. Not buy into 2026. They're going to be bought into coming back. I mean, buy into them seeing I'm going to be an Oriole for the majority of my career. It's only going to take one respected player in that clubhouse. And Pete Alonso is certainly going to be respected. And, Scott Boras talked about at the press conference, like, hey, I got calls from Jackson Gunnar and Jordan Westburg when we signed Pete Alonso, and it was different conversations. And that's awesome. But one of those guys is just going to have to be the one to make the first domino fall. And then all of a sudden, Jordan Westburg's here for 6 years. And then Jackson Holliday can look around and say, oh, Jordan's going to stay. And Colton Cowser can look around and Kyle Bradish can look around and say, oh, somebody else is going to be here. Plus, we're going to have Pete Alonso. Plus, we're going to have Basayo. I can feel a little better knowing, hey, we're going to have a core if I'm here beyond the next 3 years at the very least. And we know they're willing to spend now, so they could add to the core that could involve me. I'm just waiting for that one domino. And I even, in a weird way, don't think like if they gave 7 years to Framber Valdez, I'm not even sure that's the domino because that's still an outside name. It's the same thing as Pete Alonso, just on the pitching side. It's really got to be one of these internal guys who have played together for 5+ years now throughout the minor leagues and the major leagues with the Orioles to be that domino that falls and says, I'm a guy who was getting closer and closer to free agency. I'm going to go ahead and sign that extension as a homegrown Oriole to stay here long term when I know I could have had my pick of the litter if I hit free agency. That's when I think this conversation flips. So if they can get one of those guys to sign, right? So not even a Rodgers, because he's kind of an outside pitching addition, but a Westburg, a Cowser. I mean, Gunner's not happening. That would obviously be the number one. But a Westburg, a Cowser, one of these guys to sign that deal, then you kind of step back and you say, all right, somebody finally from that core bought in. That I think would still be a win of an offseason, even if the number one type pitcher didn't come in.
Well, there's a moving bar in the AL East. As you can see, like the offseason is constantly changing, and we're certainly in one of the tougher divisions in baseball with the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Blue Jays now doing what they're doing. I would just kind of like to get your perspective on where the Orioles would fit right now if we had to say how the offseason's gone for each of these teams. The Red Sox just went out and got Wilson Contreras this week. So like where do they slot in 1 through 5 right now? I would say in general, and with the bar moving, obviously it could move tonight, it could move tomorrow.
I would say in terms of best offseason so far in the division, I'd still put them second behind the Blue Jays. Just the fact that the Blue Jays got Dylan Cease and the Orioles did not get the Dylan Cease type player yet. Now that they get Pete Alonso, absolutely. But the Blue Jays not only got Cease, but they got Bieber to come back. They added Cody Ponce. They made a good rotation even better. The big Blue Jay question is, will they bring back Bo Bichette? And if not, will Bregman or Tucker be a Blue Jay? If they do that, they're going to win the offseason of all major league teams. That's kind of the one question there. If the Orioles were to sign Framber Valdez and then the Blue Jays lost Bichette and didn't replace him with one of those guys, I'd probably move the meter to be the Orioles had the best offseason. Now, when you're looking at talent, the Yankees have done next to nothing, but I still think they're probably the best team in the division. I mean, I'm trying not to be too skewed by the run the Blue Jays just made. There's still questions about that offense and certainly that pitching staff beyond the rotation. The Yankees are the best team still. The Red Sox... I have no idea what to make of the Red Sox. They are a good baseball team. Garrett Crochet is the scariest pitcher in the world, I think, not named Scooble or Skeens. But man, oh man, I'm unsure what it's all going to look like for them, but they're a really good team. Obviously, again, Yankees are already good. Blue Jays are having a great offseason. So I'd say Orioles offseason is number 2. I'd still say maybe tied third with the Red Sox for best team in the division right now. I think the Rays are maybe going to do a 1-year step back, and I think that's smart by them to look around and say, all right, let's accrue some talent around here. Let's let these 4 duke it out, and we'll come back in 2027. But I think what's nice right now is we got to thank Rob Manfred and everyone who gave that extra wild card spot, because there is a chance you could get 4 teams from one division into the playoffs with the new wild card spot. And if I had to predict it right now, I would say 4 teams from the AL East are getting into the postseason, which would certainly be helpful. But I think, yeah, with the Cease edition, it's going to be hard for the Orioles to beat out what the Blue Jays have done so far.
So I was thinking, though, if the O's were able to get Valdez or Suarez or Amai, all of a sudden that puts their rotation as, if not the best in the East, right towards the top. I know the Yankees still have some question marks with Garrett Cole's health and whatnot, and the Red Sox have a very good top part of the rotation. So if you had to make a bold prediction, are you still pounding the table for Valdez as who you think they're going to go with, or where are you as far as all this after the Bods signing?
I think if they're going to get one of the 3, the top 3 being Ranger Suarez, Framber Valdez, Tatsuya Imai, who are left, I think Valdez is the most likely. It's the connection with Elias from Houston. It is the questions about the character that I think might bring down his value a little bit, but also Elias and his group would be the most, I would say, qualified to feel good about that, to be able to talk to the right people, to know that it's going to be okay if he comes in on a 5 or 6 year deal. I still have in my personal rankings, I have Imai, Suarez, Valdez. I think Valdez is a better pitcher probably than Ranger Suarez, but it's very close. And Suarez is a little younger and didn't throw a ball at his own catcher. So for me, that kind of puts Ranger Suarez above Framber. But I do think how I've talked about Framber is I have legitimate concerns about all of that, because it wasn't just that. There was some stuff, with issues with defensive positioning and yelling at players on the field before that and during his time in Houston. To me, again, Mike Elias has still not given out a multi-year guaranteed deal to any pitcher. If he's going to offer Framber Valdez a 6-year contract, that tells me that he is absolutely certain that it's going to be fine and some of that stuff is behind him for Framber. Because if the Orioles have never done this is the biggest risk you can take in baseball, really, is free agent starting pitching. If they're going to finally make that risk on a big money 6-year deal, it's not going to be someone, I wouldn't think, with character concerns and big ones that they're worried about in the clubhouse. So to me, it's like, would I rather have the other 2? Yes, because of that. But if it breaks tomorrow, Jeff Passan or the Orioles have signed Framber Valdez for 6 years, $190 million, I'm going to feel confident that Elias did the due diligence enough where he finally not only feels okay giving out that money to any pitcher, but specifically to Framber, despite what has happened in the past.
Who do you think they're going to sign?
I think it's going to be Framber. I think if it's going to be those 3, I think they're going to feel like they have an up on the market in that way and are just willing to give him maybe an extra year if he wants it. I think if it's the 3, I'm not totally 100% convinced they're going to get one of those 3 left, but if it is going to be one of those 3, I think it'll be Framber.
Mike, do you have anything else before we play whatever game you have for us?
No, I want to play a game. We have Connor. We didn't get to play a game with him last time, so I want to make sure we get to that.
Oh, fantastic.
All right. Well, Connor, we play a game on this show called Ballpark Figures. And what I do is I come up with a top 10 list that I find usually on the internet. And you guys are responsible to try to fill in the blanks of the top 10 in that specific list. All right. So today is an Orioles one, obviously, since we have our Locked On Orioles guest. And it is going to be all-time leaders in runs scored for the Orioles, the Baltimore Orioles. And you guys, there are 12 that I'm going to have here because 3 of them are from the St. Louis Browns. So I'm taking the 12, and I'm going to say, in there, I'm going to give you credit for those and kind of skip the Browns.
So we work together, Connor, both of us on this one. So, my first name, because of longevity, would be Cal Ripken.
Gotta be.
Cal?
Yep, that's correct. He is number 1. Well done. You have 1 down.
Oh,
All right.
man.
My next name, I would go fairly recently, as Adam Jones. He played almost 162. He was a leadoff hitter for a lot of that. He was an all-star. I got to think he's on a top, what you said, 12 of this list.
Agreed, Mike.
That is correct. You got Adam Jones. So just to give you some frame of reference, Cal was at 1647 at number 1. Adam Jones was number 7 on the list at 875.
Now, what do we think about like Brooks Robinson? Again, somebody that played forever.
Longevity. Yeah, I would go there next.
Very
Mike?
good. Very good. Brooks Robinson, number 2, 1,232 runs scored.
So Frank is on a lot of these lists, but runs scored is the one where it is sometimes more about the longevity with the team rather than, I mean, if you're a good player, you can do it in a short amount of time, and he was one of the best players ever. So that makes me think he could be up there. I don't know how you feel about Frank Robinson being up there.
Yeah, he was one on the tip of my tongue there. Mike, where are we at?
Unfortunately, he is not. So that's one strike. That's okay. You guys are going to come back. You're going to bounce back. So Frank was number 25 on the list. He had 555 runs scored.
Okay, so that's a good frame of reference where it's like no matter how good they are, they got to be Orioles for a long, long time probably to be on this list.
Palmero.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking is, if guys who hit a ton of home runs, like Eddie had a bunch of homers in an Oriole uniform, and every single one is a run scored. So if you're adding, and we get 3 strikes before we're dead here, Mike.
Yes, you do.
And then he starts helping us.
Yeah,
and then start helping.
That's the next one I would think of because of just all the homers. Each time he hits one is going to be a run. I don't know how you feel about Eddie though, because it's not like he was a speed demon taking off and getting himself in scoring position all the time.
No, I like Eddie. I think that's a good one.
That is correct. Eddie Murray's number 4.
Okay.
He is 1,084 runs scored.
So the others I would think of would be like a Kenny Singleton, again, Rafael Palmero.
Palmero's a good one because of the homers and the multiple stints with the team.
What do you think, Mike? Palmero on that list?
Palmero? Is that the guess? Unfortunately, no. He is kind of in the Frank Robinson era. Like he is at 589. He has 23rd on the list.
Oh no.
Now I'm trying to think, like, do we want to go a little more recent with in the Adam Jones ilk of players in terms of
like
let me guide you a little towards the top of the lineup, towards the top 1, 2, 3 hitters in the lineup.
Brady Anderson. Sorry, Connor.
No, that was the name I was going to bring up shortly, but yeah.
Yes, Brady Anderson is number 5. He has 1,044 runs scored.
So someone I'm also thinking is Brian Roberts. He did have some injury issues at the end, but he hit at the top of that lineup for almost 10 years and was very good.
Yeah.
Jason, do you confirm that
Agreed.
one? Yes, correct. Number 8 with 810. So you guys are doing fairly well right now. Let me just give you the list where you're at so far, right? So you got Cal at 1, Brooks at 2. We have a St. Louis Brown, George Sisler at number 3. I'm not going to make you guys guess that one. Eddie Murray at 4. Brady Anderson at 5, another St. Louis Brown at 6. You got Adam Jones at 7. You got Brian Roberts at 8. So you got a couple more to go.
We need 9 and 10 is what you're telling me. And 11 and 12 or whomever the non-Brown players are.
Yeah, you need to get at least, 3 more, I would say.
All right, top of the lineup guys.
Markakis? No.
Yeah, I mean that's he did hit at the top of the lineup. That's when did he debut? 06, 05, 06, and he played through 14. I mean, it was really one injury he had.
I would. I mean, that would be my guess.
Right.
I don't know.
I'll take Markakis.
You want to do with it?
Yeah.
Yes, you guys did it. That's correct. He's number 12 on the list. Obviously, like I said, there were 3 in front of him. 749 runs scored. 749.
All right. So we're looking for a couple guys who scored a few more runs than Nick Markakis.
You need a guy who scored 796 and a guy who scored 772.
What about like Boog?
Yeah, see, that would be the other one where you'd think about the longevity plus the home runs. And again, guys who hit, guys who get on base and hit first are nice for this, but also guys who hit the ball out of the ballpark and create their own runs are also good for these lists. I would go with Boog. I mean, he was an Oriole and he hit a bunch of homers.
Yeah. Let's do it, Mike.
Yep. He's on there. He is.
Fantastic.
Boog Powell, number 9, 796. Well done, guys.
So,
Now,
do we have
what do you think
one
about
more
like
we have to
bum?
get here?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's one more that you guys got to come up with here.
Were you going to say Bunbury?
Bunbury, Blair, Singleton. Those are like the three. That keep
Those would be
going
like
on.
the older top of the lineup guys.
Yeah.
Other than those guys, I mean, I'm trying to think like anybody else recently. I mean, Jones, Markakis, Roberts. I just don't think, even though they were somewhat long tenured Orioles, like I don't know if a guy like Mora would be on there. Just wasn't good enough, probably, or on good enough teams. That's the other part too. You're getting into weird territory on those teams that did not score as many runs as they probably should have. And so you got to go back to probably better Orioles teams. Like, you probably have better hitters and potential run producers and scorers than Al Bunbury, but just because he was on better Orioles teams, he's probably on base and scoring runs. So I would tend to go back that far to get the last guy, because just the better you are, the more runs you're scoring, the more chances you have to get on this list. Better.
Have we said? Have we
Jason,
said the name yet?
we have a special guest, and I think he's on the right track. So I would listen to him.
Did we name somebody?
He did.
Oh.
At the very end there, he was speaking very highly of him.
Who is that?
Was it Melvin? Is it Melvin Mora? Am I moving?
No.
What you said,
Who else
take a
did
ride
you
in the
say?
Wayback Machine to one of those better Oriole teams.
All right, so we talked about Bunbury.
You
And
did.
Jason, you mentioned who? Singleton and Paul Blair.
Yeah. Something's telling me Bunbury, but
All right, let's do it.
Yes, sir. You are correct. It is Al Bunbury. He is number 10, 772 runs scored. So you guys did a really nice job. Well done.
outstanding. Out of curiosity, where is Alomar on that list?
So let me just kind of finish. 12 was Markakis, 13 was Paul Blair.
All right,
Melvin
so we're on
Mora,
Rachel.
you guys talked about him. He's number 15. Belanger was at 18.
Okay.
Chris Davis, 22. I did not see. Who did you ask about, Jason?
Alomar. I was just curious because I know it's like the 3 years, but it's like he was
Sure.
really good for those 3 years.
Yeah, I'm still scrolling on Robbie. He's not in the top 50.
All right, I digress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically two categories. It's either long tenured top of the lineup, or they just hit tanks and got themselves there. So that was Boog hitting tanks. That was Chris Davis. He wasn't on the full list we needed, but Chris Davis just solely doing it on home runs was 22nd on that list.
Outstanding. Mike, I feel like I've met my match as far as Oriole knowledge.
I
guys struggled a lot less than we would have, Jason, John, and I.
I feel vindicated. I think we should both feel vindicated, Jason, because the next two that he said on the list were Paul Blair and then were Melvin Mora.
Right.
And I feel like we should both feel vindicated that even had we gotten it wrong and picked one of those, we would have been very, very close. And I think
Right. We would have just gone to that one anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You know what? Melvin Mora also, Melvin Mora grew up in he lived in the town that I grew up in Fallston, Maryland, and
That's right.
famously has the sextuplets, the
That's
six
right.
twins. And they were younger than me, much younger than me, but all went through the same school system. So we would have our, rec baseball parade day in March to kick off the season. And there's Melvin Mora sitting on the side, cheering on his little kids as they walk through the rec baseball thing. So I will always have a soft spot for Melvin Mora. That plus the home run he hit off the actual top, not just off the top, landing on top of the foul pole in left field at Camden Yards. One of the weirder home runs I've ever seen.
Outstanding. Well, I think that wraps things up for us. Connor, thank you so much for giving us the time here. I'm hoping to talk to you very soon because I want to talk about another big addition, I'm hoping. And in the meantime, just let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, Locked On Orioles podcasts, wherever you get podcasts, you can check it out. We're on YouTube. We are in the 2-month stretch of the off season where we are only posting 3 days a week. So it'll be a general Monday, Tuesday, Friday-ish schedule until we get to spring training. If there are moves that warrant more episodes per week, those will happen because this is a very exciting off season. But you can get it wherever you get your podcasts. You can get it on YouTube as well. And there are ways to get the show ad-free now as well if you're interested in that. But certainly come over and join. If you've never heard the show, we're about to hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. And when we do, we're going to do a giveaway. One of the bobbleheads behind me is going to a lucky YouTube subscriber. So make sure you hit that red button, and you can potentially. I was thinking about giving away Ryan Mountcastle, but that felt mean because actual Ryan Mountcastle might also be given away. And so I might go with a player that people might, a bobblehead that people might want a little bit more than the Ryan Mountcastle one.
Is that only because you're trying to clean out like your space? And
you can only have so many bobbleheads on a shelf, and you look around and you feel the ones you want to keep, and there's a lot from the 2010s, and there's a lot. There's like a Chuck Thompson one back here that I love having there, and there's some really random ones like my Jerry Hairston one. And then I think, who would I want to part with the most? And it's Ryan Mountcastle. And I'm like, oh, wait, maybe that's because I want the team to part with him at this point. And I'm like, that's not really fair to the YouTube subscribers. I'm like, look at this thing I want to get rid of. It can be yours. It should probably be as a thank you to everyone for subscribing. One that I don't want to get rid of as much. So I'm thinking maybe the Buck Showalter gnome might go. That was always a popular giveaway back.
Fantastic.
Or there's a Jim Palmer one back there as well. So we shall see.
Well, outstanding. You definitely put Connor in your rotation of your podcast you listen
Yes.
to. You will not be sorry. Trust
You will
me.
not. Thank you for your time, Connor. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Happy to be here.
All right. For Mike Frisky, for special guest Connor Newcomb, for my screaming happy child in the background, I'm Jason Weisbecker, and we'll catch you next time.
Don't forget to subscribe to Dad Bods, Crabcakes, and Sports on Red Circle, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your free podcasts. And while you're at it, leave us a review. It really helps us out. We're trying to spread the good word about Baltimore sports far and wide. Follow us on social media for more behind-the-scenes actions, memes, and bad sports takes. You can find us at Dad Bods, Crabcakes, and Sports on Instagram, and Dad Bods, Crabcakes, and Sports on our Facebook page. Until next time, keep rocking those dad bods, eating those crab cakes, and never miss the game.